My name is Howard Edelman. I'm your host of Israel and the Jewish World. On tonight's show, called Innovation in Law, in addition to starting our membership appeal, we're going to inaugurate a 13-part series on medical research in Israel. Israel's renowned for its spectacular innovations in many fields. Our focus is on the medical research and the scientists at IMRC, the Institute for Medical Research, Israel, Canada, at Hebrew University. Through Canadian Friends of Hebrew University, Canada raises funds for IMRC. There are also joint ventures between Hebrew U research scientists and Canadian collaborators. David Lichstein, a world-renowned researcher in medical neurobiology, will be our guest as the new chair of IMRC. Kainan-Koren, another guest, heads Yissum, the Hebrew U organization for translating science into business opportunities. So what's the connection with law? Well, stay with us and find out. We're going to introduce a series of discussions all year, we'll have them every other week, on innovation in science in Israel. And our guest tonight is David Lichstein. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
David, you had quite a unique institute, the Institute for Medical Research, Canada-Israel, Israel-Canada. I want to discuss that with you, but before I do that, I want to get into your science, because you're a scientist heading this institute.
That's right.
You're a physiologist, and used to head the Department of Physiology.
Yes, I did.
And then another research center, and now this big conglomerate that you had.
Right.
How did you move from science to becoming a quasi-bureaucrat, if I can, in the academic world?
Well, I don't like the quasi-bureaucrat, but...
Description.
Right. Well, I'm a scientist, as you said. I mean, the main interest in my life is really the science, and I enjoy very much the work that we do. But as you grow older, you know, you want to change things around you, and you want to influence the science that is being done, not only in your lab, but also in the institute that you are working in. And to do that, you have to do administrative work or academic administrative work. And that's what brought me at the time to be the chairman of the department, and later on, eventually, as you said, the chairman of this institute. I think it's very important. I think what I'm doing now, I am participating in establishing the system that is going to be around in the next 50 years in the Hebrew University, in the medical research field. So I think it's important, and that's why I'm, devoting time doing that.
Well, I read your biography, and I said, this guy's really suited to this. He does research on cataracts. He does research on bipolar disease. How do you do research on both? They seem so radically different.
Well, that's a good one. It's very easy.
Really?
In both cases, I'm actually a cell physiologist. And I'm working on certain transport system, an enzyme called sodium-potassium ATPase. It's a very basic machinery that we have it in all our cells. And apparently this machinery is controlled, is regulated by a family of steroids called digitalis-like compounds. It's a certain family of steroids that we and others have just recently discovered. And this machinery is important in many functions. It's important in kidney function, in brain function, in heart function, in the lens transparency in the eye, and so on and so forth. So when you are working on enzymatic machinery, you may end up working in different, on different systems, and that's what happened to us.
So it has the same enzyme as that work in bipolar disorder?
Absolutely, yes. What we have shown just recently, and we've published, maybe you saw that, several papers in biological psychiatry, we've shown that this enzyme and these regulators, these steroids, are involved in the etiology of bipolar disorder. And actually we have pointed out now to a new target for drug development for this disease. So, yes, working on this enzyme brought us to this disease.
I want to extrapolate from your research that you have one enzyme that does all these many different things in many different areas. I know when I went to medical school, the idea was every single chemical had one function, and it was very unidirectional. One of the things I sense is radically altered is the sense of the complexity of even each individual unit. So I presume it's not just about the enzyme you did research on, but about many other things.
You're absolutely right. I mean, today, the opposite is the truth. I mean, we know there is no one compound that I can think of that does only one thing. Any hormone that you will take, any, not only steroid, any peptides, any protein will have numerous functions. In the case of the enzyme that we are working on, the sodium potassium ATPase, it is involved in so many functions. It affects the ionic gradients across the plasma membrane of cells. It is involved in muscle contraction, in release of neurotransmitters, of active compounds in the brain, in release of other hormones. It's involved in so many functions. And the same is true for almost anything you will touch.
So I want to extrapolate, because it means that there used to be the model of a human social organization was hierarchical. You had this function, you did this, you were the accountant, you were this. And that's radically transforming. And it's particularly in university research institutes, because as you know as well as I do, that no one can do research on an area from your discipline. You need, computer scientists, you need biologists, you need molecular biologists, you need physiologists, pharmacologists. So it's an interdisciplinary. So the complexity of doing research has really increased. Has that been your experience? I mean, you've headed a research institute.
Right. Well, it's not only that's my experience. This, what you just pointed out, is really the main motive of the reorganization that we are doing now in the Institute.
Can you describe the history of this reorganization?
Sure. I mean, the classical way of organization of medical school, any medical school, and ours as well in the past, 30, 40 years, was that there were the classical departments. You had the Department of Biochemistry, Department of Immunology, Anatomy, and so on and so forth. I mean, this is the classical way things were set up. You have to have this organization still today, because you have to have an organization around discipline. You must have that still. For example, if you want to buy a new instrument, a new piece of equipment, which is, as you know, very expensive, and you cannot buy it for small groups, you have to buy it for a large group of people. So in order to be efficient in that respect, you want to buy an equipment for the Department of Biochemistry. Okay, so you want to put the biochemists together. The same is true for any other discipline. You still have to have this old organization. But this is very not effective scientifically. As you pointed out, the real way to do science, not only in medical sciences, but in any aspect of science, is to do multidisciplinary research. So what we have done now, we have put together something that we call research hubs.
What exactly is a research hub?
Research hub is you take people from different disciplines, from different departments, and you put them together. Not physically, but you made them to work together. You gave them funds to work together. You initiate all kinds of collaboration between them by many means, and they do.
So you'll have a hub on, for example, cancer research?
Exactly. We have 3 hubs on cancer research. So for example, if you mention cancer, we have, for example, a hub called Cancer Microenvironment Hub. Okay? In these hubs, in this particular hub, you have physiologists, pharmacologists, structural biologists, cell biochemists, molecular biochemists, physicians, pharmacy, people from the pharmacy school, all of them working together on cancer. They meet together very frequently, they discuss their work together, they really fertilize each other's work. I mean, it's great, and it's working beautifully. This particular hub, for example, is now trying to establish some collaboration with McGill University. So it's really great. And the same is true for other. I mean, we have a hub on let's say, Parkinson's disease. Okay, in Parkinson's disease, you have theoretician, you have mathematician, you have physiologist, you have electrophysiologist, you have anatomist. Again, physicians in each hub. There are physicians from that particular field working together, addressing this particular problem, and so on and so forth. So it's not only that we can do multidisciplinary research, but we must. And we have organized these hubs to do so.
What I want to do, David, is explore not only the strength of that a bit more, but some of the problems that come from that strength. But we'll take a break and come back and we'll do that exploration.
Sure.